Hey, let's watch some anime, shall we? Hi, I'm TBSkyen. Welcome along to an anime reaction, I guess. It's more of an anime watch along, if I'm being quite honest. But reaction is the word that the YouTube algorithm knows, so that's what we're sticking with. Basically, how this works is that there's a timestamp up in the upper left corner, and I've got the episode playing for me, and it follows that timestamp. So what you're going to do is you're going to set your timestamp to that 0000 point as well. And then I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, play, and then we're going to play through the episode. And then maybe I'll say a few things while the episode is happening. And then every once in a while, I'm going to have a bunch of stuff to say that I sort of don't want to interrupt the episode by saying, or like don't want to talk over the episode. And so I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, pause, and then you're going to pause, and then we're going to talk about the thing I want to talk about. And then I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, unpause, and then we're going to keep watching it together. So it's kind of like a hanging out with a guy who can't fucking shut up and has serious ADHD and many opinions about anime and cartoons and stuff like that, talking at you about stuff that he's interested in. So if that sounds fun, load up the first episode of Solo Leveling and get ready to get into this. So this is an anime that comes like highly recommended. I've heard from a lot of people like reading like the web novel or the webtoon thing, that like, oh, this is a really interesting take on sort of the isekai power fantasy genre thing that we've got going on. It's like, oh, it's a dark satire of capitalism kind of thing. And then, okay, that's all stuff that interests me. I've been a little bit more like, it seems like it's kind of edgy, like in terms of, oh, lots of blood, yeah, it's brutal, gory. And for me, sometimes, very occasionally, that can be a little bit of a red flag when it comes to this kind of thing, because sometimes things that sort of invest very heavily in being edgy, yeah, like blood and gore and violence, yeah, like they have a tendency to sort of get seduced by, they get seduced by the edginess, by simply showing things that are brutal and sort of forget to have anything particular to say about that brutality or any particular goal with that brutality. Just like the shock and like the charge and the emotional value of simply showing the gore and brutality trumps the gore and brutality actually being used to say any particular thing, right? Like it sort of message and theme sort of takes a backseat to simple spectacle sometimes. And that's been my slight worry about Solo Leveling, as I've sort of observed people talking about it and it's like seeing clips from it and stuff like that. Is that, okay, is this a thing which has a backdrop with a lot of thematic interesting stuff that it doesn't explore because it's too busy having cool fight scenes and lots of blood spraying everywhere? Or is this a show that actually uses that brutality to explore a theme? Like, for example, low-wage exploitation under capitalism, which, like, again, I haven't seen the show. I don't know if that's actually what's going on in it. That's just buzzwords that have sort of been flittering about on the outskirts of my perception as I've sort of watched the discourse around seasonal anime content this season. So I'm curious. I am curious about this show, and I want to give it a good chance. So if you are ready, load up your episode, set it to 0000, and let's play in 3, 2, 1, play. 3 years ago. Okay, flashback starting. Okay. So they're doing a thing of like, we're setting up why all modern military technology can't simply be used to kill fantasy monsters on a medieval tech level. Okay, fair enough. Oh, okay, right. There's the blood. Oh, boy. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. Yep, there's the blood. Wait, why does the healing magic wipe the blood off his face? Is it also cleaning magic? Ooh, hello. They're definitely doing the first episode Sakuga thing to get people hooked. Ooh, palette swap. That means it's strong. Okay, so the action direction is pretty damn strong. Like it has a lot of confidence in what it's doing. It doesn't feel the need to hit you over the head. 3, 2, 1, pause. So when it comes to like Sakuga, right, like in anime, there is a thing sometimes which is I would have to work for a long time to write a script about exactly what I mean here to sort of formulate it, but there is a certain kind of Sakuga direction where it's like you can tell that the anime is very, very anxious to show off. Oh, we look at all this cool shit. We can, it's like, and they kind of overdo it. Like there's this tendency to oversell things, to linger a little bit too much on the cool shit. And to sort of like really try to hammer home, no, look at all the cool Sakuga we've got going. Look at the Sakuga, please, for the love of God, look at the Sakuga. And it feels, sometimes, to me at least, it feels a little bit sort of desperate, a little bit like it doesn't have full confidence in the quality of its work. Here, like I'm seeing, it has a lot of, so far at least, it has faith in the audience to be able to parse and understand the action that's going on, and it doesn't overdo the emphasis on each big Sakuga punch of, like, for example, like when he threw the mandible through the thing there. That was snappy. That was just like, we just show the action, we just do it. And if I were to slow that down and like do an animation breakdown of it, there would be a ton of like, oh shit, they did a bunch of cool stuff here, but they never lingered on it. Like they were like, this is an action scene. It has to be fast. It has to be snapped. That's nice. Like it's a little thing. It's nice to see. Like it feels like that means there's an action choreographer who's working on this, like a director and a cinematographer who have faith and confidence in what they're doing. And I like to see that. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, unpause. Oh boy, character design. Yeah, you can tell which ones are the grunts because they're all really boring to look at. That classic style of character design. Like, if your outfit and your hair is boring, yeah, we know that you don't matter. But colorful hair with a cool little braid and like a suit and shit like that, oh yeah, no, this guy's like got main character energy. Or like major character energy. Okay, exposition time. Okay, 3, 2, 1, pause again. Sorry, I don't want to pause a million times, but like, do they ever explain why? Like, hang on, like, why is it just like, because it's completely fine if the answer is just, oh, magic. Like that's completely cool with me if the answer is just like, these monsters are immune to like assault rifles and cruise missiles and I guess also naval ship cannons somehow because magic. Like that's fine. Like if the answer is just magic, then I'll be very happy. But like I'm really curious to know if they have like a really complex lore explanation for why wouldn't it work to accelerate a metal slug to like 4 times the speed of sound and like throw, like why does that just bounce off of him while a guy with a sword like sort of stabbing at it. It's like, oh yeah, no, that's effective. That works. The answer has to be just magic, right? Like it has to be, it's because of magic. Like it's just only the people who are hunters can do it. But then why can't the hunters just use guns? Like if it's the hunters who can kill the monsters, like they have the magic power to harm them, just give them the guns. Like just fucking give them the assault rifles. Like why doesn't that work? I know I'm asking the wrong question. Like this is the suspension of disbelief phase where either you just kind of go with it, or else the inherent absurdity of it kind of takes you out of it. Because I am a little bit on that like I could understand if it was like, oh, only wizards using magic can harm it. That would make instinctive sense to me. But the thing of like, like a man with an assault rifle propelling a metal slug through the air at extremely high velocities, just poof, bounces off, no problem. Goblin level 1 creature, pow, bullets just bounce off. But because this is kind of part of the premise of the show, right? We haven't met the protagonist yet, but as I understand, the premise is that the protagonist is a really weak hunter who's like shit at everything and who like can barely kill a level 1 monster with like a little shitty hunting knife or whatever. But then like why can't he just pick up a rifle? Like is there an explanation for that? Because on the one hand, they should just say because magic. It's just because fucking magic, don't worry about it. That's what they should say. They should give an explanation that's just because magic. That's just the rule of the world. But on the other hand, I really want an explanation. Like I want to know, why can't our protagonist just like get an assault rifle? And it also came to me when I was talking about the character design, right? Because the S rank dudes who show up, they're all wearing fantasy armor. Which, why? Why are they wearing fantasy? It's because it's magic gear that they found in the dungeons, and that's like the only stuff that actually works against monsters. That would have to be the explanation, because otherwise, why aren't they wearing like body armor? Like why aren't they wearing modern like protective materials, like compound materials and like modern gear that is like substantially better armor than like a metal plate strapped to your chest? Why aren't they doing that? And like, more to the point, why aren't they wearing stuff that is aesthetically modern, right? Like if it's still a thing of like, oh, only magic armor can defend you, then the paladin has a breastplate that's like fantasy magic armor, sure, but then why isn't the rest of his gear modern clothes? Like I'm curious about that, specifically because the guild leader guy, he was wearing what was essentially a suit, right? Like it was essentially like a very sort of modern, sleek-looking suit kind of thing he got going on with a little bit of medieval cloak nonsense, but like it was a modern suit, right? Like it was kind of part of his character design. So it is the world building accounting for that? Like why they aesthetically choose to dress up the way that they do? I'm curious about that. We'll see. I'll shut up now. Let's keep watching. 3, 2, 1, unpause. So we have a caste system, and that's a very natural thing to use to explore like the inequities of capitalism, if that's what we're doing. If that's what we're doing. I like that. Like yeah, there we go. Now they're wearing modern clothes. Good character design though. Like I like the NPC, like the side characters here. He overheard you. Solid character design on those side characters. Like, there's personality in them. I like that. Oh, 3, 2, 1, pause. Nice. This is just a little directorial thing. Nice little shot juxtaposition, right? She's leaning towards him, right? And she's like, that's unjust, and you should be like, she's trying to sort of take his side and argue his perspective and like be outraged on his behalf. And she's leaning in towards him, but the camera angle completely cuts him off, right? Like, it shows her on the very right side of the screen and then just nothing but space to the left. And then we cut to him and he's all the way on the left and nothing but space to the right. So like there's this visual separation of the two characters where she's trying to reach him, but then he, of course, he's giving her all of these, well, I'm used to it, doesn't matter, who cares, like, doesn't, like, she's trying to sort of break through to him, she's trying to relate to him, she's trying to speak to him, to get into his space, and he's like, well, like, he's brushing her off because he doesn't feel like he's worth bothering with. And that's a good little camera, like, it's very basic, like, it's not genius Martin Scorsese level film language, it's just, that's just good. I like that. Okay. 3, 2, 1, unpause. Right, so the answer is magic. It's because of, but then why can't they make guns with magic bullets? Seriously, I'm still on this. I still want an explanation. I know it's just magic, and that's fine. It's not a real criticism of what I'm doing here. It's just, ooh. What are these resources? Ah, he's telling the other guy things they both already know. Good. Exposition. Well, that's bad. Ooh, oi, boy. Right in the kidney. Oh, no, never pull the sword out. Jesus, no. Never pull the weapon out. Jesus, when you get stabbed, leave it in there. There's going to be a monster breaking through the lions and he's going to have to protect her, or... Three, 2, one pause. So this is a small thing. And this is something that's very typical of seasonal anime of all kinds. Pay attention to the room that these characters are in right now. Do you see all those completely straight lines, like on the couch, on the furniture, on the paneling on the side of the? How do you see how many just completely straight, completely perfect straight lines there are, just aligning to the perspective grid of the environment, right? That's normal, but it's also very, very visually sterile, right? Like this doesn't really look like a room that anyone lives in, right? Like, or anyone, like, this doesn't look like this is this guy's office. He's had it for 30 years. Like, this looks like a room made of plastic, essentially, right? Like, especially look at the couch, like where the couch is on what I assume is the carpet, and there's no interaction, right? Like the couch doesn't sink into the carpet. There's no fibers. There's no visible texture on it. Everything is just like this very sterile box room with things inside of it that the room needs to have, but no sense whatsoever of personality, of being lived in. No mess, no irregular. Like, the couches are perfectly aligned to the perspective grid, right? They're not like, they haven't, like, a guy hasn't sat down in them and scooted them back a little bit. Like, the coffee table doesn't have any stains on it, or like circles from a coffee mug, anything. Like, the desk doesn't have any mess on it. There's no sense of having this space having been lived in at all. And this is one of the scourges of, this is something that I think about. This is one of the scourges of seasonal anime, is that backgrounds, especially, and like it sort of affects every part of it, but backgrounds is something that have a tendency to be made purely functional. Like, purely like, here are the features that the room needs to have, blah, 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 plop them in there, and then we spend all of our budget, all of our time, all of our resources on, like, having the character animation happening, right? And those are decisions that are completely understandable from a structural perspective. Like, the economics and the business side of making this kind of anime sort of just necessitate that you do it this way. Like, with how many backgrounds you need, with how many scenes that need to be animated, with how much crunch there is and how much overwork of animators that's happening. Absolutely no surprise that they do it this way. But it's also one of the scourges of modern anime to me. Like, because I'm a nostalgic old bastard, right? I'm a child of the 90s. I remember scenes, like, back when backgrounds had a tendency to be hand painted, like often watercolor, like, and had a tendency to be hand painted and handcrafted for the individual shots that they were in. Just because of the way that they were produced, there was a lot more time to create backgrounds that had much more of a sense of life to them in a lot of anime. And, like, also I have nostalgia glasses on, right? Obviously there was cheap trash produced anime back in the 90s as well. Obviously there was. But I remember all the good shit from back in the 90s, and one of the things that I really loved, especially like when I think of, like, this is an unfair comparison, but Cowboy Bebop, was the attention that was often paid to environmental design around, this is this character's office, let's have some environmental details in here that reflect something about their personality, right? Like, that reflect something about their history. This is a room this character has spent a lot of time in. What would have happened to the room over the course of their interactions, right? Like, and that is something that in a lot of modern anime, like, frankly, in most modern seasonal anime, just simply doesn't exist. Rooms, backdrops, environments, places are sort of just, these are functional spaces within which the characters move around. They're not being used as storytelling opportunities very much. And that's a pity. It's a gripe. It's not really a gripe with this anime specifically, but with seasonal anime in general, that, like, this guy's like the leader of the Hunter Association or some kind of high-ranking former adventurer guy. He's got those cool scars on his character design. Like, that's all very cool and shit, but I don't get any sense of what the fuck this guy is from looking at his room. He's got this bookcase behind him with a bunch of books just in a straight row, and just, like, crammed in there, like back to back to back, and, like, there's no souvenirs, there's no trophies, there's no, like, anything. Like, there's no sense of the detritus of a life lived, right? So I don't get any sense of this guy's personality beyond he's former hunter, gruff man, speak rah 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 rah, doing exposition, blah blah. And, like, maybe it's also like, maybe he never shows up again in the entire show. Like, maybe this is the only scene he ever has where he delivers an exposition dump so that we kind of understand why people want to go into these dungeons, which is because of, like, there's resources in there and we have to exploit all of the available resources because of that's how our economic system works. That's fair enough, right? All I'm pointing out here is like, this is a general tendency in a lot of seasonal animation that environments are deeply deprioritized as storytelling opportunities, and it's a pity. I wish they weren't. That's the point I was trying to make. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, unpause. Couldn't you just have a guy shoot lightning at a generator? Like, shouldn't surely... Yeah, definitely go in there. That sounds like a good idea. Have you people never watched this movie before? Like, never? Yeah, you should do that. Oh, okay, so here we... Oh, okay. Oh, so it's our... It's the weakling who has to break the vote. Good. That's good storytelling. Three, two, one, pause. Okay. Okay, so this is where people were coming from when they were talking about like this. So I don't know that it's anti-capitalist necessarily yet, but it's definitely being... It's what it's establishing here is an elaborate metaphor for like labor in general, right? Like, because if you go to work in Amazon fulfillment center, right? Like, we are lugging crates around, you're working at a breakneck and fairly inhumanly brutal pace. You are hurting yourself, right? Like, people get workplace injuries from places like that, especially like manual labor of all kinds. They get workplace injuries all the time, really bad ones. Like, they get killed. And that used to be like even more common than it is today, at least in like that which we call like the developed world, which is not a great term to use, but like nowadays still you go to many places, like go to the Congo, you'll find children working in cobalt mines, mining out the materials and resources that are needed for us to make smartphones and computers. Just so you know, if you have a smart device of any kind or a computer of any kind, which you do, otherwise you couldn't be watching this, pretty decent chance that the cobalt that was used to make a bunch of the components for that machine were mined by child slaves in the Congo. Pretty decent chance, unfortunately. And so like the act of resource extraction of all kinds has always been incredibly fraught, incredibly dangerous, like a very even if it doesn't outright kill someone through a mining accident, like just the sheer strain, the chemicals that you get exposed to, like all of that shit, that is pretty likely to give you cancer or some kind of horrible disease and kill you. Like, there used to be a disease killing miners called black lung, which they got from just inhaling so much fucking coal dust all the time, that they just choked to death and died. Horrible agony. In order to extract coal, which could then be used for energy generation, right? Like, which is where I'm seeing the metaphor here. Is like, okay, this is... these people are being sent in there to risk life and limb, and they're being spent like resources in order to collect this, like these natural materials that can then be used to generate clean energy, right? Okay, so that's where we're going with these people are essentially miners, right? Like, that's the metaphor that's being established here. And it seems to be critical of like sort of pointing out like, hey, if you create a society in which if you don't have money, your loved ones are going to die, and like your family will never be able to like receive an education or have an opportunity for a better life, and you will not be able to eat, you'll be thrown out in the streets, you'll be like thrown into peril and like die of exposure from being homeless in the winter or whatever. What you're essentially creating is a situation where like either you work and harm yourself and hurt yourself in absolutely terrible ways, or else you don't work and then you just die in another agonizing way, right? Which is sort of the, like, that's the tension of modern capitalism, is that, like, all labor is undertaken under threat of death, essentially. Like, this is why it's so horrifying when countries introduce measures that criminalize homelessness in so many places. Because it's like, right, but if you're homeless, what the fuck are you else? You need to sleep somewhere. Like, what the fuck are you supposed to do if you can't afford to have an apartment, and then you get thrown in prison for being unable to afford an apartment? Where exactly along the line of this is the person ever going to be like, yeah, I can definitely afford an apartment more easily now that I have a criminal record? Like, right? It's that thing. Like, it's this thing of like these people, they're not being forced at gunpoint. Like, there's no pit boss with a whip going, yeah, work harder, you slave, like standing over them. But there is a metaphorical gun to their head that if they don't go in there and work, like that's the same thing with the guy with the extra child on the way, right? Like, it's like, do you want that child to be able to eat, to go to school? Do you want to be able to afford diapers for them? Well, I mean, it's up to you on your own personal responsibility to take personal responsibility for your personal problems with your personal responsibility, and personally make the personal decision to go into a lethal dungeon where you are about to, like, I can see where this is going. They're all going to get fucking killed, and he's going to survive, and he's going to get his cheat ability or whatever. But yeah, they're all going to fucking die. And there will be no one you can ever point to and say, why the fuck did you create a situation where this man who had a second child on the way is now leaving his wife a widow without any source of income, and he went to die? Because he did it with his personal responsibility. He made the personal decision to personally take the vote, to personally go into the thing. Like, no one's responsible for it. And thus, an endless cycle of human misery and atrocity can be committed without anyone ever being responsible for it. Oh, it's not anyone's fault, ever. No one did this. It's all just personal, individual responsibility decisions being made with personal responsibility under free hand of market capitalism, invisible hand of the market. Don't worry about it. And you have no right to be upset, because everything bad that happens to you ever is totally your own fault, and not the fault of any system that is in place to force you or encourage you to make decisions that will get you killed, right? So that seems to be what they're doing. These people are miners, and the criticism that's being framed here is like, hey, if you have a form of labor that is just inherently destructive and dangerous and deadly to the human body, and you organize it around this fucking caste system where some people are just born to be better and some people but just born to be fucking miserable. That's the other thing. He goes into the dungeon with a shit piece of equipment because he can't afford any better equipment, because he hasn't been pre-imbued with enough power. Imagine if someone was fucking wealthy, right? Like, imagine an E rank like him, but who was really fucking wealthy and who could afford to buy really fucking good gear. Probably have a different outcome. That doesn't seem very just or fair, does it? When the world depends on these people doing that job in order to bring those resources back that makes the entire world fucking run, seems a little bit weird that they're being treated like disposable human waste. Anyway, that's enough of a rant from me for now. I'm sure if the show continues with these themes, I will have many more. Be forewarned. 3, 2, 1, unpause. secondary protagonist? Oh, I hate him now. Okay, that's a gracious little booty shot. I feel like you could have maybe gotten the bag without putting those two guys in danger of losing their lives over a handbag. If you've already been walking for 40 minutes, you need to go back now. Oh, it's gonna suck so bad when she gets killed. No, but if you've been walking for 40 minutes already, you need to go back now. Okay. I will say, like, the dungeon's being very fair. It's telling them in no uncertain terms, you motherfuckers are gonna die. It's being like, it's environmental game design. I wouldn't go in there. Good contrasting. Like, again, the show is just telling us how much they're gonna die. Holy shit, they're so dead. I've never seen a dungeon like this before. That should be your cue to get the fuck out. Okay. Have none of you ever played a video game? You have so many chances to walk away. You could leave. Ooh. Will not leave here alive. Yeah. Yeah. Yep, 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 yep. Ugh. I mean, at least he went quick. He didn't have time to be afraid. You're supposed to praise God. Fall to your knees, pray to God, hope for the best. The eyes of Notre Dame. Three, two, one, pause. So there is, if you're familiar with Discworld, there is a passage from one of those books that's called the Sam Vimes Theory of Economic Inequality, and the way that it goes is basically this. A rich man can afford to pay $100 for let's say $500 for a really nice pair of boots that will last forever and still, like, with a little bit of care, will still be good in 10 years' time, right? While a poor man can maybe barely afford to pay $50 for a pair of shit boots that will last for a season or two, and then they'll kind of give out, and then because they can't be repaired, they're going to have to be replaced, which means that in the 10 years until the rich man's boots finally have to be replaced, the poor man is going to have spent more than 5 times as much money on boots and is still going to have wet, cold feet, right? And that's kind of the thing that's being shown off here. It's that thing of, like, if you don't have good gear in order to beat good monsters, in order to, like, make good money and, like, get a big return on it, you're just going to get caught in this downward spiral of, like, the cost of replacing your gear is sort of barely being covered by the amount of time and money and indeed labor hours that you're sinking into it. And, like, you can never actually make a profit. There's no upward mobility for him. That's the thing that's being shown here. And I think that's being done quite cleverly, like, without belaboring the point. 3, 2, 1, unpause. Whee! That little animation of the skeleton being blown up, like being blasted to... Yeah, that was good. Yep. You are definitely gonna die. Oh, okay, that's the end of the episode. Okay, fair enough. I guess they show him getting his cheat ability in the next one, because of course that's the other thing I have in terms of thematic concern with this show, is that this guy is gonna get a cheat ability, right? He's gonna get the ability to level up, and if the show is trying, and it might not even be trying to do this, like if the show is trying to frame an actual criticism of like extractive capitalism and like labor exploitation under a system of extractive capitalism, then this idea of like, oh, well, if you just, like, he gets a superpower that allows him to just, if he just grinds, if he just puts his nose to the grindstone and pulls himself up by his bootstraps, then he can overcome, right? And that's going to muddy the waters a little bit, because that's just going to sort of play into the idea that, like, suffering and misery under a system of extractive capitalism is basically your own fault, because if you worked harder, if you had a better work ethic, if you were a better person, then you'd be able to work your way up by pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and climbing the corporate ladder or whatever, like work hard and like save up and be responsible for your money and all that. And the reality of the real world is that no, that's not how the fuck it works, because there's million systemic pressures that are designed to entrench the hierarchical caste system that forms the basis of extractive capitalism. Like, for example, the ranking system, where some people are just given more resources to start with, and then of course they succeed, not because of any like internal quality that they have, not because they're better people, not because they're more honorable or moral, or because they're like kinder or more reasonable or whatever, but just because you happen to have 4,000 magic points in your blood instead of 200, so that you S rank. Now here is all of the money, and having like the fundamental ability thing of like, well, here's an ability, you can grind yourself up. It runs the risk of conflicting or muddying the waters or making incoherent an attempt at an actual systemic critique of this form of labor exploitation. Because again, like, I don't know that the show is actually critiquing capitalism. Like, it might not know that it is, but it is, at least, it's clear that it's trying to critique a form of labor exploitation, right? Like, that's sort of the basis of the show, is that there is this form of labor exploitation, and the isekai power fantasy that it's selling is, what if you can transcend it? Like, what if you had some way to gain power over this shit? And like better your condition. What if you had that? Like, that's the power fantasy. That's what the cheat ability represents, is that power fantasy, the ability to transcend the problem. And I wonder if that's going to thematically clash with what the show is trying to do. Either way, that's interesting. That is interesting. I'm going to have to watch the next couple of episodes, aren't I? I think I am. Because I want to see where it goes. Like, I want to see how it handles this. So yeah. Cool. I haven't had an answer yet to my question of whether it's edgy for the sake of edgy or because it's illuminating something about its theme. I'd have to watch the whole season, I guess, to sort of really figure that out. But good start. A little bit. This feels like it maybe should have been a double episode, like it, just structurally, like where we actually get to see the. But like, it's a good cliffhanger. On the other hand, like, maybe I'm spoiled from things having like feature length double or triple episodes to start with. Yeah, you know what? This is a good cliffhanger. It's a good cliffhanger to start on. Like, no hope, complete down in the dumps darkness, and then the next episode can sort of detail how he gets that glimmer of hope that allows him to. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's not a real criticism. Anyway, Solo Leveling. I'm intrigued. I am curious. I will watch more of it, but not right now, because right now, thanks for watching some anime with me. Bye.